in the sense of gathering and collecting ourselves. And settling in, settling within ourselves in this time, in this place. Being in touch with the ground, and the support on the floor and the pelvic floor, and the sense of welcoming and the basic well-wishing of life. The here and now is this. And the breath. And breathing in and the breathing out. Allowing the belly to rise on the in-breath and fall on the out-breath. If you can't be in touch with that, then try breathing out with the belly going in and holding the breath out for a moment and sipping the breath back in. Do that a few times. A sense of release around the spine, the neck, and openness in the chest and around the armpits. A softness in an unfocused gaze, or the eyes closed. The moment and the place received. Settled, collected, gathered, and fully experienced. all the time in the world, all the space in the present. All the time in our world, given and received, and a sense of well-wishing, sense of inquiry, and a sense of investigation. In the stillness, in this silence, in this space. A relaxed attention, and this given, and this received. a sense of well-wishing, experiencing that within, allowing it to permeate the experience, a sense of well-wishing, a sense of care, a sense of welcoming and accepting, appreciating, and enduring. A willingness to be with what is, however it is, giving life to life, and giving all the time, all the space, all of the space in time, all of the time in space, all of the present moment, experience, received and responded to. In the knowing, the energy gathered, the aliveness awake, the support of the energy of life, touching that, encouraging that, allowing that, I'd like to offer some reflections on experience and some flexibility in perception, or some ways of dwelling on things that maybe are not so immediately attractive or encouraging, but allow the heart to be more flexible. Just to ask, is the mind in the body or the body in the mind? And we experience the body, is the body in the mind or the mind in the body? Is there how is this experience? I don't know whether there's any surety of whether the mind's in the body or the body's in the mind. This is something to at least appreciate, that the body is experienced in the mind, and yet we feel that the mind is in the body. And can they be separated? And what is this body? And what is this, the effect of this body? How does it work? What is it about? This body is as it is. It's a whole experience. When we look at a body, we look at our own body in the mirror, we look at another's body, what we see, if they haven't shaved their heads, is the hair of the head, the hair of the body, the nails, the teeth, and the skin. And when we're looking at these, when we're experiencing this, what we see is dead. The hair that we see is dead. The nails are dead, the teeth are dead, the skin is just flaking off. And this body is looking at, or reflecting on it in this way is a way to encourage flexibility. It's not to, and a sense of coolness in the heart. It's not to make it somehow repulsive, but noticing that the impulses that we have around this, how we tend to perceive. This is just through the sight. And then the body, the way that the body works. Within the skin, there's all this stuff happening. And just a small break in the skin allows what's inside to start oozing out. And then anyway, it's got holes in it, this body. This body has a hole that goes all the way through it, which is what is the processing, how the processing happens. We take something in, food in, or liquid in, and goes through this hole, and as it's squeezed and squashed and moved around through this hole, parts go in and then parts go out, because also this whole body is always oozing. It's always what's inside is coming out. Through the skin, through the eyes, they weep. Through the nose, it's got a cold. Through the mouth, as the saliva comes out. Through the skin, through the pores. Just noticing that when what maybe has gone in as something quite attractive, quite tasty, with a good, wonderful, attractive smell. When it comes out, how does it come out? The most delicious cake, the most wonderfully baked thing, most delicious chocolate goes in like this. And as soon as it touches the lips, something shifts. When it's gone into the mouth and started getting squashed by the mouth and by the teeth, it shifts, it changes. This is the effect of this body. Just being alive. This body, other bodies. These nice, fresh, beautifully smelling clothes, clean, laundered, ironed. They go on the body. They rest on the body. And the body moves around, and maybe they get muddied by things in the road, or things, they maybe get something spilt on it or something like that. But even with the body that they're protecting and that they're clothing, the oozing from the body and the way that the things come out, they get stuck in the clothes. And just, it's this thing that we take so personally and give such attention to. And if we think, well, it shouldn't be this way, well, that's not helpful, because this is the way that it is. And it's a way of reflecting or finding another perspective on the business of being alive. To consider this aspect of the body often. Somebody told me the other day that there are more non-human cells within the skin or on the skin than there are human. Because there's all the different things that people see under microscopes. There's all the different bacteria that move around and do their thing, that live dependent upon the body and consider the body their home. They will do what they need to do. Not that they really have a great consideration of what they are. They don't really reflect, but it's part of the way that nature works, that there is this part of the way that on this level, in this thing of called time and space, how things work. And the whole thing is shifting, it's always changing. It's always, and the body is always getting older. It's always going through its cycle from the fragility of newborn through the maturing, and then after maturing, the declining, always subject to the possibility of injury, always suffering, open to the possibility of being hurt, always sensitive to the and always responding, always receiving and responding automatically. And then with all the different balances of the chemicals and the way that works. But again, not something that we really consider as its own pattern. The automatic responses of hunger or of fear of physical damage, response to pain, physical pain. And it's not wrong. This is how the body is. The body has this. This is what it is. This is the experience. It's a fragile, delicate thing. When we clean the house, the mess that the body makes around the house is not all of the mess, but other bodies will also make messes, the other bodies of other animals and creatures. And just the way that anything that is put together starts to decline. There's always this breakup. You can talk about the chemical elements, but I don't really know about that. But the qualities of just bodies of having a sense of inertia, they persist, but they also have the fire and the change. The fire that gets the whole thing going. The way that things transform and change. And the way the shape changes and the quality of the water. And the way that the impulses change the body through the fire. Because it requires that for the transformations to take place. Even something as simple as speaking requires transformation at a very rapid pace. And there's always this vibration and the fragility of it. It's always vibrating. The earth, water, fire and air. The fire, water, air and earth. Of anything that stands forth. The rupa, khanda. The rupa heap. And then when we practice this reflection, if we're taking it into our meditation practice, then give it a little bit of systematic attention. This aspect of the body that is in bits, the body that is not the non-attractive aspects of the body, of the breaking up of the body, the put together nature of the body. It's the body in the mind, or the mind in the body. And how do we hold the mind in the body, or the body in the mind? How does it work? As we experience the body in the mind, and how we hold that experience, that perception, it depends upon the habits that we bring to it. And we can shift and change those habits. We can train it. We can train the habits of the perception. And having a flexibility around something as basic and fundamental to placing us in the here and now as this body, and making it really conscious, because you may have unconscious experiences of the body. How do we experience the body? Do we feel it's, do we feel it's beautiful, or do we feel it's ugly? Do we feel it's too fat or too thin? How do we perceive this? And can we shift and change that and see it from a different angle? Have a different set of assumptions when we approach this, or when we experience this. So we're experiencing it in a different way. The hair of the head, the hair of the body, the nails, teeth, and skin, the dead bits that we hold within ourselves as our perception, the dead bits that we hold within as we hold of other people's bodies. When we remember or have a perception of body, and it's not wrong. It's not wrong. In order for there to be, there has to be this constant transformation and death and birth. So it's the nature. And to see it as bits is helpful, not to mash it all together and fix it. And not to not notice the bits that ooze through the 9 orifices. You'll have to count them. Not to ignore how the skin leaks. Not to ignore the bits under the skin and how we hold them, the images we have of them, the experience of them. It's just an encouragement to see things differently, perceive things differently, notice them from a different angle. And the effect that this body has is not to dismiss it. When it can be used, but as it's used, there's an effect, it has an effect. It has effect on the clothing, it has effect on the food, it has effect on the place we live, and it gets sick. And this is what we've got. This is what we take personally. And this is what when we see others, we go, what we see is the body. Notice that. And then notice if something else can be noticed. And dwell with other people and on ourselves. Notice the noticing. Because we have this is where we find ourselves, and then taking care of it all. Although this thing is as it is, to relate to it so that it brings a blessing, or to relate to it so that we do take care of it. Recognizing its fragility, its resilience, both. The response we have around, when we take something in, to a certain extent we kill it, even if it's a live thing, even the probiotic yogurt or something. It has to go. It goes through a process and breaks up. And this is just ordinary food. We even pre-process it by cooking it, doing elementary, or sometimes quite sophisticated chemical treatments to it by heating it up, mixing it with other bits of food. It's practical chemistry, it's cooking. It's a way of mixing chemicals and things and bits and pieces together to produce results. And then when the food enters the mouth, and then if it has any resistance and doesn't just get swallowed immediately, the effect of the teeth on the food as we chew, and then noticing how that chewing transforms resistance or solidity, and the mixing of that with the chemicals in the saliva, and noticing how the taste responds to that. That's, again, it's all about, well, it's not all about chemicals, but it's all about sensitivity, because there's the heat and there's the cold and there's the texture, and then there's the taste, the food, the sweet, the sour, and how that business works. And then the perceptions around it. Giving attention to the minutiae of it sometimes. A way of taking the practice in. Even before that, I mean, it's often suggested in the monks for them to give time to actually look at the food on the plate and notice how the mind responds to the food on the plate. And the thing about food is that it's a really clear thing that we transform through consumption. This absorbing of something from somewhere else inside, or what we perceive as inside and outside. And then noticing how that's also what we do about everything that we take inside, consume. I'm finding a sense of care around that consumption, a sense of noticing how it happens and noticing how, when we take it too personally, when we make it as ours, what happens to it? What do we create from that? When does the food become me? Is it ever me? What do we create with the energy of it? What karma do we create? How do we transform what we consume? This is just a way of talking to, particularly for this body, to break it up a bit, make it less solid or all of a piece, less all of a piece, and more breaking it down mentally as an exercise, as a way of shifting the habitual. There's a certain beauty to it all, and a certain peacefulness to it all, because it's just like this. It's not supposed to be any other way. That's fine. It's fine. There's no big deal. And the walking meditation, the Supagamathan that I was taught by Ajahn Chah, just walking up and down on the walking path, and at one end of the walking path, starting to put things down, imagining putting down the hair of the head, the other end, hair of the body, the nails, teeth, and skin, and all the bits of the body, just seeing them as a heap at each end of the walking path. Examining the way that the heart responds to that, seeing the parts rather than the whole, rather than concentrating on the whole, seeing the parts, reflecting on the nature of this bit, this body. And it's the same for others. If we concentrate on the body, we see or think of other people. I try to notice more what I really appreciate about people's actions and their attitudes and what they bring to the moment. And this is just a suggestion. You don't have to take it too personally or too seriously. It's something that if you want to, play with it, and if you don't, leave it behind. with this body. And when we look at the teeth of the person next door, or look at our own teeth in the mirror, we recognize we're looking at their skeleton. And this is the nature of the teeth. Or they might be false. It's true. For the most part, most people look at them, their teeth, we look at their skeleton. And the skeleton is also something that shifts and moves. It's not as fixed as all that. It's actually quite alive until the life force disappears. Life force is interesting. What it is, and karmic energy that's finding some way of completion and is caught up in this swirl that we call the five khandhas for the sake of convenience: form, feeling, perception, conception, and consciousness. It's just nature doing its thing. So I offer that for your consideration, and you can turn on your cameras if you wish now, and try and answer some questions. I have 3 already. If you want to type your questions, you're welcome. What are the benefits for a lay person to practice and stay a long time in the monastery as against an ordained person? Which is more recommended? I don't know. If you're a lay person, you have to figure out what staying a long time in a monastery means, whether you have the freedom to do it and what your attitude is. As I've said a few times, my attitude when I first joined the monastery was to figure out what I could do to help. And that I found a good attitude to have. And I think, one of Ajahn Chah's standards is to try to leave a place better than you found it. In some way, try to improve on what you find when you go and stay somewhere. Leave it clean and tidy, do some improvements. In some way, figure out what blessings you can bring to a place. This is the theme that I often return to. Is your life a blessing or a curse? And then how you relate to things and the places you stay. Is it a blessing or a curse? And how do you feel that what you receive when you stay in a place is a blessing or a curse? Is it safe? Is it supportive? Does it encourage the practice of the Dhamma, and is the Vinaya kept? These are the things that you can consider, whether you stay long or short at a monastery. I don't know whether you're a lay person or a monk. I don't know. Ajahn Chah did not stay very long with Ajahn Mun, but it was a very supportive and useful time for him. Other people he stayed longer with. I've stayed with some people and stayed in different places. Some people I've known have stayed as lay people in monasteries, and some people have stayed in less. I don't think there's a clear answer to that. If one still has something that one cannot let go of, then does this mean that this person is not suitable to get ordained? It depends what it is that one's holding on to. And it depends on the person. People are different. People have different karmic conditions. People have different responsibilities. People have different attachments. I'm not sure that, people say, well, what would happen if everybody became a monk? And it's a stupid question. What would happen if everybody became a bus driver? No, it's not going to. It's who would drive the ambulances? It's it's ridiculous. Those sorts of questions, and in terms of if you and what sort of ordinations are open to one? There's a question. Different people have different karmic conditioning, and some people will want to take on the further training, or some people won't. How should we relate to thought, or with thought? Understand dukkha. Thinking is dukkha. Thinking is part of is dukkha. Thinking is always incomplete. Understanding that is helpful, and yet thought, mano, that thinking quality of the mind, is the place to direct intention. The first verse of the Dhammapada is think and act with a thought that's not, with a mind that's not, with ways that are not skillful, and the result is heavy and crushing. It's that sense of being run over by something and squashed. And that's the result of unskillful thought. It follows with the way that the wheel follows the ox. I think ox are considered not very clever. And in old days, the wheel of an ox that followed the ox would have been a heavy thing. And if it ran over you, and there were, those sorts of accidents. It's not the only age where there have been traffic accidents. So that would squash one, crush one, break bones, be painful. And think and act with a skillful intention, skillful direction. And then the result of that is followed one light as one shadow, which I think is great, because in English you've got light and shadow. As light as a shadow is almost a paradox. And a shadow is not very heavy, and it's just there. It's not a bother. It's not going to weigh you down. So that's to direct thought, relate to thought in a way that brings lightness, even if it's a heavy subject about the way that the body is, so that it's not something that weighs you down. And in practicing the recollection of the body, as I've been saying, remember not to dwell in aversion. It's not about making the aversion to it all. It's just the word English in English is disgust, and the way that gusto is related to taste, and disgust is not like a revolting thing. It's more like tasteless, without taste, not in terms of fashion taste, but in terms of flavor, flavorless. So it's not something that catches your tongue anymore. It's just, like that. Neither good nor bad. Just something flavorless. So the intention of the practice is to encourage that sense of flavorlessness. So there's no entanglement, no further entanglement and complication. So those are the three questions that I've got. I don't know if anybody else would like to write any others. How important is renunciation? How is it related to insight and decreasing dukkha? Renunciation is the renunciation that's been talked about is the renunciation of indulging in the five senses, nekkhamma. So indulging in sense pleasures. Now, sometimes people feel that renouncing is denying, but there's a difference. And renouncing is not indulging. And indulging is milking it or overstimulating the senses, trying to get too much out of it, trying to prolong or amplify. And there's an effect of that. The effect is actually that the senses go a bit numb and then finally atrophy. They can't be continually stimulated. They're not designed to be stimulated. They're designed to notice shifts and changes. And if you overstimulate them, you're actually self-harming. And indulgence is a type of self-harming. It's a strange self-harming because it feels so good. But you can't get more. And it's that not indulging doesn't mean not appreciating. Okay? There's a difference between indulging and appreciating. And I certainly find if I appreciate the food, even if I have reflected on what it's going to do with the whole business, and I do reflect on that, it still digests better if I've appreciated it, taken the time to really appreciate it. And appreciating goodness and beauty, or in the senses, is not indulging. It's just noticing there is goodness and beauty. There is skill in the way things are conducted, in the way things are done, in artisanship, in art, or in whatever. There is skill. Indulging is milking it for too much, or just seeking it out as a way of stimulating it, and then overstimulating it. And it's relating to insight, because insight is into seeing things that you can't get satisfied through the senses. The senses will never give you full satisfaction. Because if you do get something, then if there is some stimulation that you really enjoy indulging in, you're tied up with that. Is the sense, well, it's going to end at some point. Or there's a sense of, I don't want it to end, which is again stressful. And this is called dukkha. And then when it does end as that, and so what you're doing is with insight, by understanding dukkha, there's the impulse to let it go and not hold on to the cause of dukkha, which is the sense of I have to get more, or the thirst for more, or the sense of I can't be satisfied, which leads to indulgence. And that is the cause of more dukkha. So I hope that gives some impression on it. So renouncing the senses is renouncing the pleasure through the five senses. Yeah? And that includes sexual pleasure.